Hi everyone, Ginette Biro here, helping you make sense of life within the world of spirit so that you can connect deeper to your higher self and your purpose. Now, today I want to talk about a question that I get quite often is why some spirits need to rest when they cross. And this is a great question. And for those of you that are kind of like, what do you mean? I don't understand the context. Say if in a reading, you go for a reading or you have a loved one that passes and you don't seem to get much communication from that loved one, either in dream state or in the reading, that's because that spirit is in a resting place. So what that means and the way that we can understand it is sometimes when a spirit crosses, or when a person leaves this plane of existence from either a very traumatic passing, something very, very traumatizing energetically or really fast, or even sometimes a really hard illness, an illness that was really, really challenging on them, there are times they will end up on the other side and they will need some time to process it. That's not the case for everyone though. I have talked to many spirits who had a very traumatic passing, but they are there, ready, no rest needed, full communication. But there's others who have had a traumatic passing of sorts and they're not really reachable. And so what that means is that spirit is taking the time needed to go over their life, to do their life review, to make sense of why things happened the way they did, to gain a better understanding so they can make peace with it. And it's the point at which they make peace with it is when they can then move on and move forward. And so again, for some, this life review, this making peace with it happens almost instantaneously. For others, it takes a little bit longer. Now, here's the thing to remember is that there isn't time the way there is time here on the other side. So on the other side, I could easily say there's no time. And so if you find that, say you're going to see a medium to try and connect with a loved one that passed, you tried a couple weeks after they passed, you couldn't communicate. You tried a year later, you couldn't communicate. Finally, 5 years later, you can. It's not that they took 5 years to come to terms with whatever their trauma was. It's that it took whatever it took until they could make peace with it. They don't have 24-hour time like we do. So we could measure it in 5 years, but to them it simply is until it is no longer. So that's something to keep in mind, because if you feel or you worry that, oh my gosh, it's been so long, to them it's not, it just is until it isn't. So that's one thing to remember. And the other thing to remember too is that oftentimes they're healing, it's not because they are in turmoil that they're not healed or they haven't come through. They're just doing the things needed to make sense of it. So if they're not reachable still, if they're in that phase where you can't connect with them yet, don't stress about that. Just send them loving energy. Think of them with love and compassion and positivity, and that will help them come to terms with whatever it is, but it doesn't mean they're stuck and stressing always. So I hope that kind of helps make sense of that rest period. And one last thing I want to say about it is I have seen many different kind of resting places, because some people will ask, well, what does it look like? And for some people, it's like a hospital, and they kind of look like they're being taken care of in a hospital. But I have seen others in a resting place where they're on a tropical island with many different palm trees and stuff with hammocks, and they're laying in a hammock resting until they come to terms with it. I've seen other people in a tent right by the lake's edge, and they're just spending time in contemplation there. I've seen other people so expanded into consciousness that they are one with the stars and the planets. Like they're just pure energy. And it's hard to reach them because they're so expanded, exploring what it's like to be energy, that they're just like, I'll be back in a little bit. I gotta figure this out, right? And they're in such an awe and wonder mode. So there's many reasons why they may not be reachable. And I'm going to say most of the time, like 99.9% of the time, it's not because they don't want to talk to you. They are just in a phase of soul experience, soul completion, or soul expression that they were doing. And when they're ready, they'll come back and they'll be able to communicate with you. So something to keep in mind. I hope that helps make sense of it. And for everything else, check out the Ginette Biro podcast or avalonspirit.com.